There is nothing worse than untapped potentials. If you know that you're made for more, this is the place. I know that every successful person I've ever met has one thing in common. They do not let themselves fall victim to their circumstances. They figure out a way to rise above it. So join me on this journey where I help you to be better, do better, and have better in life and in business. If you're feeling stuck and you're needing some practical tools, some hope to get you to that better life, this is definitely a place for you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unstuck Podcast. I am your host, Lachelle Weemy, and today you guys get a chance to meet my new friend, Dr. Pranay Parikh. You guys, he is going to blow your socks off, especially if you are in healthcare and you are feeling like this calling for something a little bit more. He is going to bring so much wisdom, so much experience to the plate that I cannot wait for you to hear from him. So thank you so much for showing up today and just literally allowing us to learn from you and to be inspired by you.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Us healthcare people in healthcare really
Yeah.
need to stand up for each other and
Right.
lift each other up. So I'm always
Yes.
excited to talk to everyone, nurses, techs, other doctors. Because I think we need to all come together and try to help each other as much as we can.
Absolutely. And it was so fun because the day that the two of us met for the first time, I was actually in between anesthesia cases, wasn't I? And so I'm like, all right, so you are, well familiar with surgical scrubs and all the things because you're a physician and you understand call and you understand the demands of call. But you also understand, like me, this deep inner calling of something more. And so I would love for you to kind of tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to be someone who's helping other healthcare providers really go after something different.
Yeah. So I went through traditional medical school, residency, all that good stuff. And, when I graduated, I knew that it was more important what I did with my money
Mhm.
than how much I made, because you can always spend it.
Yeah.
And I had all these loans. And so I looked around and, I picked real estate, at least initially. And I bought my
Hmm.
first property like many of us do.
Yeah.
And I realized it just took a lot of work. I had gotten super lucky on buying my first one. I was thinking maybe I'd buy one a year, and it just spent so much time. I should have just spent time working instead of looking for properties. And
Yeah.
that's where I found passive real estate.
Mm.
You get 98% of the benefit of owning your own real estate, but someone
Hmm.
else does all the work for you. And so we decided to teach a course, and
Yeah.
I love education. I'm always trying to figure out how I can learn more. So we taught a course. We taught people how to find passive real estate deals, how to
Yeah.
invest in real estate, not be a landlord. And then we thought we were done, but all these healthcare professionals took our course and they said, we like what you say. We trust you now. And we kind of
Yeah.
want to just invest in the same deals that you do.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
can come together as a group, get better deals, get better terms. And so that's how we started Ascent Equity Group. And so now we, instead of taking a small piece of the deal, we actually buy the whole apartment complex ourselves. We still partner with real estate experts, but we're able to
Yeah.
kind of throw our weight around. We have a ton
Yeah.
of not just doctors, pharmacists, we have a lot of dentists and just everyone healthcare. I mean, we're open to everyone, but
Hmm.
really focused on bringing in healthcare people. And
Yeah.
I've been doing that, and then lastly, to help people now that I'm a business owner and created a business,
Yeah.
I started a podcast to help other doctors do the same.
That is amazing. And I just have to ask you, some people might be listening to this and think of healthcare providers as people who already make a good living. So they might be asking, like, why is it that you as a doctor felt the need to bring in additional income into your life without them understanding the whole picture? So why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we are wage earners and we are tied to the job,
Mhm.
and tied to the job. Like I told you before we started, I worked last night, so
Yeah.
I had just gotten up, got refreshed, and and a lot of times you're stuck, right? You don't have that
Mhm,
flexibility. A lot of times you
mhm.
have to work holidays, right? And you've
Yeah.
made so much sacrifice, like yourself. You've made such a sacrifice to get your training and then get
Mhm.
your specialty in anesthesia that you should be able to pick the shifts you want. You shouldn't have to work nights if you don't want to, right?
Right.
I work nights by choice, but if I didn't want to work them, I should have that opportunity. I should be
Mhm,
able to work as much or as little as I want,
mhm,
And I think what's happening right now is a lot of people are getting burnt out
mhm.
and they're choosing not to work anymore, which is unfortunate because we spend so much effort to train someone up and they've
Yes.
obviously have a passion to help people and
Right.
it hurts us as a whole community every time someone leaves. So instead of them leaving, if they can temper down their shifts to maybe two
Mhm,
times a week, three times a week, four times
mhm.
a week, or maybe they work full time, but they work on their own schedule. Maybe they do half
Right.
days, maybe they don't do Fridays anymore. So
Mhm.
that unfortunately takes money, and a lot of those shifts that most people don't want to work, the weekends and nights are the ones that
Mhm.
pay more. So
Right.
you gotta make a little bit outside of medicine. Plus, also, we in medicine know that nothing is guaranteed. Like you
Right.
work you go to school for 20 years and there's no guarantee you're going to be able to work another 20, 30 years at your job. You just
Right.
never know. So it's good to have some money coming in elsewhere to really feel safe.
Absolutely. And not to mention the cost of education, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I was able to get scholarships and stipends and different things along the way that burden wasn't as much as a lot of my colleagues who have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt that they're paying off, and it forces them therefore then to work more to try to pay those student loans off, which more leads to the burnout that you're just talking about, and you feel really stuck.
Yeah, my wife is a nurse practitioner, and she was very uh, picky with where she went to nursing,
Yeah.
and it was I think under 20,000 for her whole master's degree, which now I'm realizing was a
Yeah.
great choice because we live in Los Angeles and she could have went
Hmm.
to USC, which for the same schooling
Yeah.
would have been over 100,000. And
Yep.
and it's a burden, these
Right.
loans, but
Yeah.
you want to do it because you want the training, you
Hmm.
want to be able to help people in a greater sense. And it's until you get under it, it really feels like a weight. So if you
Right.
so what do? You work a lot, right? You work a
Mhm.
lot to pay off your loans and then you get
Yep.
burnt out, you know?
Yes, yes.
So
And
if you're
even
making Yeah, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
So if you're making a little bit of money that doesn't take, an hour of your time shouldn't be an hour of money, right? If you're able to kind of separate that just a
Mhm.
tad bit,
Right.
I think it just helps with the stress a ton.
Absolutely. And I was literally talking to one of my dear friends that I've known my entire medical career. So, over 20 years now. And she is in medicine and completely burnt out. She said, Lachelle, I feel like I'm living a life of or a death of a thousand cuts. She's like, nothing bad has happened. I haven't had any big traumatic event, but I'm tired of seeing people die. I'm tired of seeing people ill and hurting. And she's in a supervisory role. So she has a full patient load and she's taken on a leadership, responsibility, and it's making her want to quit. And if we can allow for people to give them some reprieve, she loves medicine. She loves her patients, and it's her caseload that is literally keeping her in her job because she said, I would miss them so much if I left. But she's feeling really stuck right now, and her joy is gone. And she called me crying. And I think that your ability to help people to recognize that there are options out there that we can give ourselves that allow for that burden, for that burnout, that the things that make us feel stuck while we still can do what lights us up. Many of us went to school for years and years, decades even, and we don't want to necessarily give all of that up, but so many people are because they don't recognize that there might be an extra option.
Yeah, and your friend sounds amazing. It would be such a loss
Yeah.
to us as a
Yeah.
community,
Right.
if someone like that decided to leave, to go into something else.
Yes, absolutely. So I would love to kind of twist the conversation a little bit towards some of the things that you're doing to acquire this wealth. And I want to just have you touch on, because I'm a nerd. I love this stuff. I love learning about investments. I'm an entrepreneurial by heart. So I have several different ways that I bring in income. And I always make sure that I have a way that delivers either residual or passive income, because the compound and the lack of ratio of effort to income is so profound that we should be finding different ways to bring that in. So I would love for you to describe for the audience what that means to consider a passive or residual income, because many people that are working 9 to 5, especially healthcare providers, don't necessarily understand that hours to work equal the paycheck. There are other ways to make money.
Yeah, and it's definitely not a get rich quick scheme. I'm not
Yes.
going to
No.
say you invest and a year later you're going to be able to quit your job. But I
Right.
think we underestimate how much money that something like this will make, and overestimate how much money we need to change our life significantly.
Yes. Yes.
So I was recently on a stage, and that was my talk. I was like, your ideal life is a lot closer than you think.
Mhm.
So, quick example, I work nights. I make about $20 extra per hour. So
Uh-huh.
right, times 12. So and it's a 12-hour shift, so $240 per day extra, right?
Mhm.
And 14 shifts are full time for us, are called nocturnists, night doctors.
Yeah.
So that's 3360 per month, right? Extra the differential to work between nights and days, and
Mhm.
times 12, that's about 42,000, if you round up a little bit.
Yeah.
So if I switched all my nights to days, it'd be
Right.
$42,000, right?
Right.
And so that seems like a number that's not that hard to hit, but you have to remember that number is before taxes, right? So if I'm in
Right.
California, I'm taking home like 21, so half of that. But the money that you're getting from real estate, it's not tax free, but it's tax deferred, and you get deferred
Mhm.
for forever and ever, right? So now I have to make 21,000. That's to change every single one of my shifts from night to day. I think you'd say that's a pretty significant change in my life. But let's
Right.
say I change half of them. That's a pretty significant change, right? Half
Right.
6 months. That's 10,000, or a third of them, 7,000. Now 7,000 in a year, you can hit that, decently well, in
Right.
terms of passive income. So, that's just if you do nights to days. If you uh, do two less shifts, so instead of 14, I do 12. The math is about the same.
Mhm.
Or, my friend recently went on his 10-year anniversary to Bora Bora.
Yeah.
It was expensive. It was, low five figures, and he was
Right.
thinking like, man, what if I did one of these every year, right?
Right.
How great would his relationship with his spouse be? And the math is pretty similar. It's 10 to 15,000 for an extravagant vacation. And
Right.
so those are things. So you don't need to replace your whole salary, because when I talk to someone, I was like, how much money do you need to make? They look at their salary and divide by 12. They're like, I didn't make $20,000 extra a month.
Right. Right.
It's hard to do that. You can eventually. I know plenty
Mhm.
of people that do, but
Right.
start at something that's going to actually be possible. I know a lot of times we talk about, big, hairy, audacious goals, and it's good to
Yes.
have those, but it's
Mhm.
also good to have stuff that's small, that's accessible, right? And you
Right.
get that forward momentum, because if you have a goal that's just really hard to get, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You have
Right.
enough stuff. You need to have a couple quick wins. You have that big
Yes.
goal, but a couple quick wins that you can get. Maybe you're going to make an extra $100 a month. I could promise
Mhm.
you, your first hundred is harder than your first thousand.
Right. Right. Oh my
To make
gosh.
that,
100%.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so, we decided that we're going to help people try to make it as easy as possible. We really have a bespoke experience where you don't do anything. We do everything for you. And, it's kind of something that I wish was created for me. I actually wish someone else had done it so I didn't have to make it myself. But
Right.
because no one else did it, we had to create it. And, all all three of us founders are physicians. We still practice in some capacity,
Yeah.
and we really created this for healthcare professionals.
I am not in this space anymore, but I remember being surrounded by a lot of really high paid doctors, lawyers, just really successful people who were in the network marketing business that I was in several years ago. And people would look at them the same and they'd be like, why are you doing something like this when you have such a successful career and this education? And it always came down to I am able to create this long term residual income based on the amount of effort that I'm putting in up front. And that sounds like a lot of what you're talking about. It's like it might not be a quick, get rich quick scheme, but what it does is it prevents you from being in the same situation 10 years down the road as you are now. And I think that oftentimes we're told that we need to go to college, get a good job, work in that job for 40 years, hope that you have enough money to retire comfortably, and all fingers crossed you're healthy enough to do it, right? And what you're basically saying is let's start to make some small changes now so that we can start to introduce that better life now, right?
Yeah, yeah, and my wife's best friend was an ICU nurse at Stanford. Amazing. She would do
Yeah.
cardiac critical care. Some of the
Hmm.
sickest patients.
Hmm.
And one day she felt a lump, and it was stage 3 cancer. And she actually passed away a year later at age
Oh,
34. You know,
goodness.
and so it's not guaranteed. And having this, we in healthcare are masters at delayed gratification, but I think it's important to enjoy some time. We went to Maui recently with my 17-month-old. And it's important to enjoy things along the way because you just never
Right.
know.
Well, that's just it. I think that you hit the nail on the head that we see people suffering on a daily basis, yet we don't. I mean, I don't, at my current anesthesia um, position that I'm in, I don't get breakfast. I don't get lunch. I'm on call for 7 days in a row. So I might not be getting good sleep at night, yet we teach that to our patients and we watch them you know, suffering from debilitation and possible neglect from their health. And yet, here we are in air quotes, like sacrificing everything in our own self, our own wellness, our own bodies in order to take care of them. And there is nothing that says that the roles can't be reversed, that I, might be the one on the table that day.
Yeah, yeah. I call it gradual retirement, right?
Yeah.
Don't wait 20, 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Enjoy some of that now because you have the health, you have the
Mm.
fitness, and
Yeah.
uh, these are really the prime time in your life,
Yeah.
as there's always that story of the doctor, the surgeon who's, he's 60 years old, now his kids are grown and they don't want to spend
Yeah.
time with him because
Yeah.
he didn't spend time or he or she didn't spend time with them
Yeah.
while they were growing up because he wanted
Right.
to provide for them. But I think those days are kind of gone. It reminds me of the generation above us where
Yes.
they worked so hard and they provided for us, but they were absent. And I think
Yeah.
now as a generation, we want to
Mhm.
kind of raise our families a little bit different than that.
Right. And I think that's so fascinating because I have done like generational talks when I was still on faculty. And it's so fascinating because when you talk to people in the traditionalist or boomer generation, right, they have regrets. They wish that they hadn't worked quite as hard as they did. And so, yet it's so funny because some of them are like, oh, this younger generation, they're not working as hard as they need to. So it's like, okay, well, we're
Yeah.
taking your advice. we're creating a more balanced life, and that's what this looks like. And so I think that a lot of times in healthcare specifically right now, employers are having a hard time understanding that people really want balance. And so it's almost even more important that we take some of this into our own hands. And as we had talked earlier, I stepped away from my 20-year career in anesthesia, and right now I'm just helping out this small town rural hospital as a short-term assignment, just because I wanted a little bit of a bridge in my entrepreneurial journey. I love doing anesthesia, so I wanted to make sure that I maintained that. but I'm able to help them on my terms when I tell them that I can. And that's really satisfying. And I think that, we have to start trusting ourselves and to take those leaps of faith, and it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. Like, my experience is that I didn't have to quit my job and then go full force into entrepreneurship. What I was able to do is think about what other solutions are out there that could allow for me to make this happen. And one of the nurses that I've been counseling has recently said, like, I would love, love, love to stop doing what I'm doing at the hospital and build my business. And so we were talking, it's like there are huge pockets of employment opportunities in the Minneapolis area right now, which is not too far from her home, that is needing nurses and are paying 3-4 times what they're paying her currently at the place she is. And like, what happens if you would decide to go up there and work, for 12 weeks and make enough money for the entire year? And so I think that the real estate, the looking out of the box and thinking about ways that we can build the life that we desire now is so important, because we don't know what life is going to throw at us. And so to take that opportunity to choose and to be resourceful and out of the box thinking is really going to help us to basically live that and life. And I didn't know that that existed, right? When I was at I would say the prime, in air quotes, of my career, I was working at one of the best healthcare facilities in the world. And working, half time in anesthesia, half time in faculty. And I was doing everything that I thought I had ever dreamed of. But what the issue was is that as I climbed that corporate ladder, per se, I was spending less and less time at home, which is why I chose not to be a cardiac surgeon at the beginning of my undergrad, right? Because I wanted that balance. And here I was literally working nonstop. I was the last mom to tear into the daycare center right before they closed, right? And it was like in this realization that I was now not living the life that I wanted to live. And I wanted the and life. I wanted to be challenged and fulfilled, making a difference in the world. But I also wanted to be a more present parent. And I think that when we can recognize those desires and make sure that we are choosing to seek out opportunities that can make that happen, we don't have to stay stuck, right? I oftentimes joke that my least favorite 4-letter F word is fine, FINE, because I think that we can get stuck in fine. I think that we can get stuck into, well, I'm not happy, but it's fine, right? And I love the things, because you're giving people hope that there are ways that we can get into a different reality, right?
Yeah, and a lot of times we're looking for permission, right?
Yes.
Because we're so used to going up the totem pole, right? You go
Yeah.
into nursing school, and then you get an NP, or you get a CRNA, and then you do supervisory role, your house, your lead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're waiting for someone to give us permission, but for this
Right.
stuff, they're not going to give you permission. And this is
Mm.
kind of actually probably against what they want, right? Because they want you working nonstop at the
Yes. Yes.
hospital.
Yes.
They're not worried that you're going to get a hernia from lifting up this 300-pound patient, or,
Right.
you're going to get COVID or all this stuff. And that, it's not their fault, right? And the corporate business structure is meant to increase
Mhm.
profits, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so they're not focused on your well-being, and they don't have to be, right? But that means you really have to be focused, right? Not just your well-being, but how you fit into your family, right? And
Right.
that you're there while your kids grow up, that you do
Hmm.
date night
Yeah.
with your spouse. I
Yeah.
actually put date night into our calendar, because if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't get done,
Right.
right?
Right.
So schedule it just like I would schedule a lunch meeting or something else. There's certain times of the day that are just blocked off for spending time with my son.
Yeah.
I don't do it all the time. It's not perfect. Sometimes there's a phone call or something that I need to
Yeah.
handle, but you got to be intentional with this.
Yes. Oh my gosh, 100%. And I would love to know, like, what are some of the biggest barriers? You've kind of touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the biggest barriers that you found in people that you've worked with that keep them from stepping into this type of life?
One of the things I hear all the time, and actually when I was at the conference, I had people raise their hands, and I said,
Yeah.
how many people have said, it was mostly doctors. I was like, how many of you said, I'm just a doctor? Right. And
Mm.
everyone's hands go up. But it's like, if you're a doctor, you're a nurse, you're uh, probably one of the at least the most well-educated people in a room, right? Almost
Yeah.
any room.
Right.
And you're able to handle so cardiology, endocrine, GI, right? You're really
Yeah.
able to handle all these different specialties. So you can handle something like real estate. I mean, there's 18-year-olds that are killing it in real estate,
Yes. Yes.
And so I have no doubt that most people in medicine can handle
Mhm.
it. It's just giving ourselves permission, letting feeling that we're able to do it, and that's half the
Mhm.
battle. Everything, the rest is just, read a book or two. That's it.
Yeah.
Uh, on the other end, a lot of people are like, okay, yeah, I think I can do it. I'm ready to get started. And they'll be like, okay, I got 10 books. I'm going to
Yeah.
these 10 conferences. I'm going to take all these courses. And they
Right.
just feel like they're never ready. But,
Right.
just, you just got to get started, right?
Yes.
Look, what do we do in nursing? What do we do in medicine? You read a little bit and then you get thrown in there, right?
Yes.
You don't
Yes.
feel ready, right? You're
Right.
like, I need another year, but they get you ready, right? You're putting in a Foley,
Mhm.
like you're like, I have no idea which hole does this go in. And but you got to get started, right? You got to get
Yeah.
dirty, you got to get messy, you got to get some bodily fluids on you, right? And that's just like entrepreneurship. You got to get
Mhm.
started.
Right. And what would be your best advice for somebody to get started? Like, what is the next right step that would help somebody move in the direction that they could be going in?
So, first step, so your listeners are already want to know because they're listening to your podcast. It's inspiring. You're giving people a lot of tips, techniques. You're interviewing people of all different
Mhm.
types. So,
Right.
want to know already, right? And then after that, it's just get started. Try to find something.
Mhm.
We spend so much time in research, but
Right.
find something that you're interested in and try it out, right?
Mhm.
It might fail spectacularly, but I promise you, you'll learn skills along the way.
Yeah.
So I started a blog that I ended up stopping because not good at writing. But I learned skills, and then I actually took a master's later, and I had completely forgotten to do a paper, and my professor was like, "Hey, where's that paper? 5 pages." I was like, Give me a second," and in like an hour, I was able to write a 5-page paper because I was so used to doing my blog post like
Yeah.
10 minutes before it was due. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to send it to you. Here it is." Like an hour later. So I learned how to write better from the
Mm,
blog, and that's a skill that
right.
now I'll always carry, even though
Yes.
the blog failed. In terms that it wasn't that fun for me. But
Yeah.
so you'll learn all these different skills in
Mm.
entrepreneurship, and even if something doesn't go well, we always worry about spending our time on something that we don't know will be successful.
Right.
And then I realized that I like to talk to people and have great conversations, and that's why I
Mhm.
started my podcast. And
Yeah.
now that's just it's going with the grain instead of against it.
Right. And I think that, we do, especially those of us in medicine, we're a lot of perfectionist type A people, right? We don't want to get it wrong. And therefore, we never actually start because we have to do it, like you said, more research and such. And I think that what you said was so profound because you might discover the best thing by what didn't work. And, in my own business right now, like I have been doing so many different things, even, most recently one on one coaching. And while I love it, I found that more people really wanted kind of a one and done, like big, heavy strategic day where we knock out and we compress time. And I'm like, you know what? I love that too. And so as an anesthesia provider, like I'm kind of an instant gratification junkie anyway, right?
Yeah.
And so I never wanted to prescribe Lasix to somebody and see how it worked in like a month. That it was never my jam. And so I am finding that it was in doing, in getting started and trying something that I got a chance to see, like, you know what? I love parts of this, but I don't love other parts of this. And this is what I'm really good at. And so you can never understand that until you get your feet wet and started to figure out, like, I don't want to be tied to my calendar that much. Or, oh, I love people. So I need to make sure that I have something with people. And so you might just very well find that the thing that you don't love is the biggest lesson in what it is that you want to do. And it's okay to pivot. It's okay that I can rebrand myself. It's okay for me to no longer offer a service and offer a different service. It's okay to find out that you don't love real estate, but look at this, you learned all of these things that now you want to be a financial advisor or something. Like you never know where it's going to lead, but you have to at least make that opportunity to present itself in a way that gets you into action. And I also love what you said about just like we research. And I think that sometimes it's literally, who do I know that can get me to where I want to go? And I think that if you can think about it, like, who do I know that's living the life that I want? And it might be you, right? And therefore, a 9-minute conversation with you can make a bigger difference than 9 months of studying videos on YouTube or books around the subject, right? And so looking at people in your life and figuring out what you want and then making that person be part of your life, whether it be hiring them or befriending them, but getting that circle around you that can show you the way, I think is so incredibly important to make it possible, right?
Yeah, and the quickest way to supercharge your results is to really find a mentor, right?
Yeah.
To pay for someone to be your coach, because
Mhm.
they'll be able to see things just like you said, someone that's done what you want,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
in medicine, a lot of times we learn from our co-residents, our
Hmm.
co-nurses, and they were just a little bit ahead of us. Maybe they had
Right.
taken that class before us, right? So
Hmm.
you don't have to talk to this like super expert um,
Right.
from Harvard or something, right? You can talk to your colleagues, and that's the way. You get started, and then you find someone to give you that feedback, because
Yes.
that feedback takes forever to learn, right? And you can
Yes.
skip 5 to 10 years of just trouble and trial on
Yes.
yourself by talking to someone, and that's how you really pour jet fuel on your results, by having someone that's done what you want to do and
Hmm.
has successfully helped other people.
Absolutely. There's two things that I want to mention from that. One, really quickly, is that those of you guys who do not work in healthcare might not realize that resident doctors, who are essentially doctors in training, essentially, you have a medical license, but you're still in training on hands-on. So resident doctors train other resident doctors, you guys. Like, we oftentimes think that we're not capable or qualified until we get all of these certifications or we have all of these things. When really, like you said, we just need to be one step ahead or two steps ahead of the people we're trying to help. And if I were to go to some of the people that had been doing this for 30 years, they don't remember what it's like to have the questions that I have. And so don't dismiss your value in the marketplace. And I also want to just say that oftentimes when I have found people who are willing to give me advice, I don't always take that advice if I'm not paying for it, because it's almost like subconsciously I'm not valuing it enough. And I kind of joked around, like, I have a coach now who told me to charge a certain amount of money for a service that I'm providing. And I was like, I can't do that. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm paying her to tell me what to do and I'm not taking her advice. Like, how stupid is that? Right. And so I identified a money block that I had in that situation. I would not have identified if I hadn't been paying for her service. And so I just want to encourage you guys to know that sometimes in the entrepreneurial space, like, compress the time and invest in a mentor, a consultant, a coach that is going to get you where you want to go faster, not only because of their expertise, but because you're more willing to do what they tell you to do when you have some skin in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, just look at this podcast. If she's giving away all this free knowledge, like, think about how amazing the stuff that she can't tell on public, right?
Mhm.
Individualized information that's specific to you, and it's
Yeah.
similar to my podcast. We try to give out as much knowledge and help that we can, but
Yeah.
there's a lot more stuff that could be individualized for your specific scenario. And
Yep.
so there's just no way to give that level of detail on a
Right.
podcast that goes to everyone, even though we're kind of niched down
Yeah.
to healthcare professionals. There's just, your situation is unique.
Hmm.
And I have coaches for everything. I have a voice coach, I have a podcast coach, I have a real estate coach.
Yeah.
And it feels it hurts a little bit in the starting year because you're paying up to tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
my business partner pays hundreds of thousands of dollars for his
Hmm.
coaches. But think about it. Like Dell has a coach, Venus Williams has a coach. Like these people are at the pinnacle of their game,
Yes.
and they
Yes.
still have blind spots, and they still need help.
100%. And the more successful I get, the more expensive my coaching is. And,
Yeah,
but the less I bat an eye about it.
yeah.
And it's funny because I heard somebody tell me like they had seen this meme that I thought it was so funny. They said, the person who's going to invest $500 is asking for every single detail. Like, well, what am I going to get for my money? And the person who's paying $500,000 is like, where do I sign? Because they value, like, they just recognize that it takes that to just level up to the next level. And I think oftentimes, one thing I wanted to just share too is that when we went into school for what we do in our medical profession, we pay tuition to learn a skill, right? So why do we think that we start a business and we don't necessarily need any training or investing in the tuition that it takes to get us to where we want to go? We just expect that we're going to make the decision and then everything's going to fall into place, and it doesn't. So to look at it like that, and that you're literally paying tuition to become the person that you want to become and as successful as you want to become, allows us to be more receptive, I guess, to that investment.
Yeah, and now a lot of coaches or mentors, they have stuff like a podcast or
Yeah.
blogs. So check out their material, see if it resonates
Yes.
with you, and
Yes.
if it actually listen to some of the stuff they say, try it out. If you have benefit, then maybe you decide to go. I'm not saying go spend $10,000 like willy nilly, but
Right.
if you're having results already, right, and tangible results, substantial
Hmm.
results, then it might make sense. And don't have like 15 coaches for the same thing. Have
Right.
one, but
Yep.
there's the thing is you have different coaches for different parts of your life and different levels. So once you level
Hmm.
up, you're like, hey, thank you for getting me to this level. Now I'm gonna
Yes.
get a new coach, and that's a good thing for them. They're like, man, I was super successful because they're
Yes.
very focused on this one. Maybe so
Hmm.
for business coaches, like getting 1 to 5 million, you're at a 1 million revenue, they help you get to 5 million, right?
Yeah.
And say, hey, thank you. And they'll be like, okay, yeah, now I'm going to work with someone else to get them from 1 to 5. And you need to
Hmm.
work with someone that gets you 5 to 10. So there's different coaches at different levels of your business or your life.
Right. Oh my gosh, I love that. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure to mention that we haven't touched on? Because we've had such a great variety of things that we've talked about during our time together. I want to make sure that you've had a chance to mention any other things that we haven't already talked about.
Yeah, so the name of the real estate company is AscentEquityGroup.com.
Okay.
If people want to get more information, my email is Pranay, Pranay at AscentEquityGroup.com. And my podcast is From MD to Entrepreneur.
I
And you
love
can
it.
get
And we'll make sure that you guys have all of the access inside of the show notes so that you can touch base with him and learn how you can work with him. I love that. If you haven't already, make sure that you're taking a screenshot and share this episode out in your stories. Tag us so that we get a chance to tag you back and have that interaction, because it's so much fun to get to know you guys out there in the listening world. If you haven't already, make sure that you hit subscribe and leave a review and let him know how impactful this conversation was. And we just are so grateful that you guys are here. Thanks for listening. And thank you so much, Pranay, for being here. I so appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Untucked podcast. I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. And don't forget to check out the show notes if you want to get into my private club, the Better Club, to be able to learn better ways to be better, do better, and have better. So until next time, keep showing up. Let's get unstuck together. Have a great day.